Hello, and welcome to Pegalucci's Coffee Chat and my presentation for the Historical Society they call them Arrowheads. How long have people inhabited Virginia? Well, there's two different thoughts on this. One, that about 15,000 years ago people made it to the Americas by way of the land bridge from Eurasia, here over the land bridge down into the Americas. And there's another thought now. It's actually highly debatable, but some people believe that the first Americans may have come along the bottom of the ice because some of the artifacts they're finding here look very much like the European or African artifacts. And there are some sites in North America that are showing some pre-Clovis stuff, and it looks like it's really old. So some people are believing anywhere from 26,000 to 19,000 years ago. In any case, people have been in Virginia for a very long time. It's really fun finding artifacts. Just the idea of being outside, no matter what the weather is like, but outside walking the dogs and being in nature with fresh air, is just very healthy and therapeutic. Of course, when you find something, it's a natural high. It's such a fun thing. It's exciting, and it makes people very happy. Here's one of my happiest moments, finding this. This is a palmer, and I found it. It was sitting right on top of the mud here after some good rains. Look at that nice, rich Virginia red clay. When I see something like this, I think I'm just going to try. I'm just going to look. It may not look like anything, but most artifact hunters, they don't leave any stones unturned, so to speak. Where somebody else might walk on by, we're going to give that thing a try and flip it out of there, and then this is an artifact, so it's well worth it, stopping and bending over and pulling it out. A lot of times you don't know if you're finding pieces, halves, just the bases. This one I didn't know what I was getting into. Boom, turns out to be a whole piece, not a heartbreaker. The quartz here in Virginia, it comes in different types. There's some very translucent pieces. We also see the milky quartz. There's crystal quartz, quartzite. These are all lithics that ultimately come because of volcanic activity.
Who could be out here in this rain and mud? People who find stuff like this.
People that walk out in the rain and mud are able to find stuff like this. The rain reveals these things for us. It's so much fun just tugging on something like this and pulling it out. Finding something from a long time ago and thinking, when was the last time somebody held this and who held it? This one I was walking by, I knew it was something, put on the brakes, back it up, check this thing out, and look at that. It's got some really nice material, cleaned up very nice. Here's one of my Finding Nemos. Here's another piece here. They're both quartzite, two different locations, two different time periods, two different types, but both of them super cool. So always looking down, keeping your nose to the ground. That's what this business is about. This piece here, pulled it out. Of course, I was hoping it would be whole. It's a heartbreaker, but you know what? It's so cool. I was pretty happy pulling this thing out. That's a big chunk of quartz. It's all about location. Some fields I'll walk, won't find anything. Other fields, you start seeing chips, might find a piece. After some rains, you come back, you keep finding things. So some places end up being sweet spots, probably camps or places that had caches that were disturbed back when they were clearing the fields. This one I never expected to find. I thought, let me check it out. I was kind of thinking that it's not going to be anything. So I was surprised, and I say, "Oh, it is one," and it was a full piece.
Oh, wow.
I had to risk getting my camera out in the rain for finding a piece like that. And it's so much fun, really. Of course, you don't see all the in-between times where we're not finding something. A lot of times we stay at home thinking, man, can't wait to get out there. Once you find something, bring it home, clean it up. I use a toothbrush. Here's another one of my Finding Nemos. And I like to clean them up, and then I group them so I can post them on Instagram. And that way I remember which ones I found together at what time and location. And it helps me keep track of things that way. Of course, you might get a little obsessive, but it is a great hobby. You start to train your eye, you start to see something, you know it's going to be something. It's a little rounded, you see that edge. You don't know what it's going to be, but you got to pull that thing out. Doesn't have to be a lot showing, and you start to get an eye for it. I found this one, I thought it was a chip, picked it up, looked at it, cleaned it up, and it looks like it's a LaCroix. It's bifurcated. Look at that beautiful translucent quartz. You see the striations in there. It looks like it's spent because that thing would have been maybe 2 inches when it started, but that's the evolution of these pieces. You find them usually in stages where they've already been worked on, or actually even to the point of being spent. This one I was really surprised to find. I was looking at this one. I just pulled this one out. I'm looking at it. It's a really good day. I look over. Boom. I could hardly contain myself. I hadn't found anything like that before. Beautiful quartzite. And here's the sister one to it that I found later. And those two are some of my favorites. Another one of my favorites, probably a round base Guilford. It's very thick, or it could just be a spike from even the Woodland Period. I'm not really sure. So I do have permission to hunt everywhere I go. It's legal, but I don't tell people where my sweet spots are, that's for sure. Now, none of what you just saw, none of those points that you just saw are actually arrowheads. None of them are from, time period where you would have a bow and arrow. So let's look back at the three main periods here we're talking about that people find artifacts of. So there's the Paleolithic time, and we have the first Americans, the natives. They're using long spears, they're going after big game, very nomadic. The climate is different, the terrain is different, the fauna and the flora are different of this time period. Because you got to remember, it's such a long time ago that people came in here and started spreading around in the Americas. These people really paid attention to their lithics. I mean, there was a focus on it. They were using stones or lithics for everything. And so it's totally important, a very critical aspect of their lives are the stone tools and weapons. So to study these things is how you're going to know about the different cultures way long time ago. So you can only make theories of who was where, who moves in, who moves out, how long were people in places, how did they transition, and so we try to learn all of that through the pieces. So one of the biggest things, and you've probably heard of this, is the Clovis. So the Clovis really takes us back to about 11,500 years ago. And so this is a site in New Mexico where they could date this thing. You might be wondering, how do we date these things? You can't necessarily date the stone, the lithic, but you would be dating things around it. So if archaeologists are excavating and they get to a site, a campsite, they could then do radiocarbon dating on the fire pit. The tools around it and things like that then would be associated with that same uh, fire pit. Of course, you would have to have this in multiple places so that you could confirm this over and over again. Once it's like that, they put it in, make that information for amateurs like me to be able to look up and type a point and know the date. That thing's a beauty, though. These things are usually fine lithic material, very well made, very thin, unbelievable. Here's a Folsom. Again, same kind of deal, way back Paleo times. Look at the flute, goes all the way up. What a beautiful piece. And here you can really see how thin this thing is. So, it's they're reducing this piece of stone. They're reducing this thing to this point. Now that's some craftsmanship. So I find a lot of pieces that are from archaic times, like this. And I would love to find something older, honestly. It's the holy grail. People do. People do. I see it on YouTube and Instagram, and so hashtag goals. Sometimes I tell my high school kids about the different creatures that lived back in the Stone Age times of Virginia. And some, I don't know if they even believe me, but it's fascinating. And to think about all of the different creatures that used to live here and that the humans, the first Americans, had to either, you know, had to think about in some way, either to support their lives or um, to know that their lives would really be endangered from these animals. Saber-toothed tiger could take down a person, no problem. I mean, look at these animals. This short-faced bear, sorry. This short-faced bear was huge. This thing is like, you're talking about way bigger than a grizzly bear. These things are really large. There were beaver the size of black bears that we have today during this time period. Here's a mastodon compared to a human. Well, here it is compared to an African elephant. Just so you know, the American mastodon was pretty big. There was also the American lion. Most of these creatures have gone extinct. The giant sloth, here I have a picture from the museum so you can get the relative size of a giant sloth roaming around Virginia back in the day. And so you have to think about, too, that the ice age is ending at this time. So in the Paleolithic times, it's starting to get warmer. The ice is receding. The climate is changing. The environment is changing. We don't know if there was an event or if these people really hunted a lot of those creatures to extinction. Those theories are out there. But we do know that there are no mastodons walking around Virginia today. And we did not even see them getting hunted in the Archaic times. Let's move now to the Archaic Period. This is the big middle period in between Paleo times and like the more modern Native Americans that most people are familiar with. So during the Archaic times, we had the late Archaic, mid Archaic, and the early Archaic, the middle Archaic, and the late Archaic. We do see farming start to begin in the late Archaic. Keep in mind, the Stone Age of North America is going on around the same time that in the Middle East, you're talking about like Old Testament times. People have cities walking around, they have money, etc. But North America is off to a later start. We're still in the Stone Age times here. The Old World and the New World do not even know each other exists. So these people are living here. They have their round houses. Some places in Virginia had the long houses too. And these are campsites. They're mobile campsites. These people are very mobile. They're going to be moving seasonally or according to their hunting patterns, etc. They're gonna move. They're gonna know what plants are good for different medicinal purposes in different regions, etc. So they're living in nature. The environment matters, and that's the lifestyle that we see in the Archaic times. The tools are changing. Climate is changing. What they're hunting and gathering is changing. They're probably making some kind of bread, even though we're not seeing them farming yet. All of the tools are made out of stone. And you think about, for thousands and thousands of years, all of these stone tools and weapons are being used. And so that's why there are millions of these things that are just, if a plow goes to a farm field, it could be excavating for you. So keep your nose to the ground, get yourself out there, learn to get an eye for this stuff, and you'll be surprised what you could find. In the archaic times, they're using the atlatl, so they're going to transition from using a long spear to this shorter spear called a javelin or dart. And so even here up in this picture, in this photograph, this is a replica, and they have a spear with the dart in it, and then the projectile point is then hafted to the dart. There's a thrower stick, and there is a weight for balance to make this thing work efficiently. The end of the spear fits into the throwing stick, and you pretty much wing it. These are some of these are examples or replicas of what the dart parts may have looked like and how they are hafted in or onto these things. Here's some nice obsidian blades. Not my artifacts. These are some replicas that I chose to show you all. Now see, this one's got the shorter one that goes in, so I don't know if they did that all the time or just some of the time. I read that most of the artifacts that we find are actually knives. They have these weird different bases and whatnot according to how they were hafted, according to the culture in the region. They did them different ways, and so that's why we type our points by the bases. And when I say they call them artifacts, they call them arrowheads, what I'm saying is that a lot of these things are not arrowheads per se. They are tools, they are scrapers, they are knives. But we are going to type them by their bases because that's where we see the real big differences. We do see the older axes, they're kind of pecked away at. They have more of a texture to them, where the newer ones are going to be polished. Here's some other examples of hafting, and here somebody's used pine tar to help solidify that binding or kind of glue it in there. So you can imagine this here may have the same kind of shape on this end going all the way down in there, where this one might have had some notches. And so they don't have metal yet in this time period, so stone is the way to go. You can't use any stone. It's got to have that volcanic origin, because then it breaks in just the way that you can get an edge. You can really see that with the obsidian ones out west, how glassy they are from the volcanic action. As we move through time, we're going to transition into the Woodland Period. Now farming's really going to be taking hold. People are going to be less nomadic. These people are going to form settlements, or what you could say are villages of hundreds of people working together. The jobs and activities are becoming a lot more variety, a lot more diversified. Pottery is happening, because now they're going to stay in one place a lot more. So you can have pottery, and you can have heavier things, and maybe build some more permanent structures. So we have in these villages pottery, and here's an example of what people may have looked like back in the day here in Virginia, cooking over a fire. Sometimes they could use the pottery, or they would use bladders from animals and things like that, and that changes through time. And the bow and arrow is invented, so they're going to transition from the atlatl to the bow and arrow. This is more modern times. This is what most people are familiar with when you talk about Native Americans, but this is my point, is most of the artifacts that we find are from the thousands and thousands of years before this time period of the bow and arrow. So I have found some triangles or some arrowheads. These are true arrowheads. This is called a Clarksville, uh, and you can see it's less than 1 inch. Um, but I have recently found a lot more because I discovered a different site where there are some, must have been a woodland camp, and have a lot better collection now of the true arrowheads. Also, I kind of trained my eye to be looking for them more. Um, you can see it's a lot different than the other points that we've been seeing so far. So even now we move with the Mississippian culture, and they even start using copper here. So they're going to be using metal here in Southern Virginia and into North Carolina. There's a vein of copper that runs down that they were mining, and they would cold hammer that into shapes and be able to use it. And this is transitioning to the time here where, all of this is before Christopher Columbus time. Now we're going to be moving into time period of what they call contact, is European contact when they move in. Everything changes, of course, at that point. So in Southern Virginia, we're really more related to the North Carolinian region here for the points because of the Roanoke River basin. We find a lot of broken tips or points. Can't really type them. I mean, we probably have Savannah Rivers and Halifaxes and Guilfords and whatnot, but there's really no way, you can't say for sure what they are without the base. Because it is all about that base. You can see there's all different shapes here. Here's a wide rounded one. Here's a narrow rounded one. This could be a Mara Mountain 1. This would probably be a Mara Mountain 2. Bifurcated LaCroix, Halifaxes, Savannah Rivers, etc. And they're all different. And that's how we can type uh, the points. But also, more importantly, this is how we're going to follow the cultures and try to learn more about the cultures through time. What they're doing and what they're using and what they're using them for. So I have found a lot of broken pieces, but only once was I able to match halves up. So that was, like I say here, a rare occurrence. So that's pretty cool. And when we find points, understand that they're most likely not going to be their original shape, their original form from when they were first made. We usually see these things get used on down to an expended point, but they could even change usage or functionality through time too. Because you could have like a really big knife, and then as it gets used down, because you keep sharpening it, it ends up being a projectile point. Could be like that. It could end up being a little thumb scraper or something. Everything that you need to do in nature, you're going to need a tool for or whatever. You're probably going to make it out of stone if you need an edge. So, as an amateur arrowhead collector, and believe me, let me just be humble right here because I really don't find some of the awesome things that I see being found, like down in the southeast, down in Missouri, Texas, etc. I've never found anything like a Clovis or anything like that. But as an amateur arrowhead collector, I know that this debate is out there that archaeologists really don't care for the fact that we're removing these artifacts. But we can give them data. I personally collect. I collect a location with the GPS number. I try to write down the information, how it was found, and also the shape of it and the material and things like that. So I collect the data and hopefully one day be able to share it with somebody to do a cultural map of the area. So it is a hobby, but I do record my data um, outside most of the time that I'm not working. Then, of course, there's the memes. There's a whole Arrowhead community on Instagram and YouTube and it's a lot of fun, and I really enjoy it. So I hope you like this presentation. I've researched a lot of stuff over the years, and know a little bit about this, so I wanted to share. Um, these are our family finds. This is our daughters and mine and my husband's. So it's kind of cool. So we all took a photo of that. Here to wrap up the presentation. Thanks for watching. I have here thanks for coming, because this was my presentation for the Historical Society where I live. But really, I do appreciate you watching this. Maybe you learned something. Maybe you just enjoyed the watch. So thanks a lot, and have a good day.